Welcome to Kunzy Podcast English, where the most captivating stories from around the world are told with a refined rhythm and deep emotion. Today's episode is titled, Trump and Zelensky at Pope Funeral, Donald Trump, and the unforgettable mark he left at the funeral of Pope Francis. Part 1. Trump's bold entrance. A suit that spoke louder than words a day when time seemed to stand still in Vatican City. A moment that the world will remember for years to come. And now our journey begins on that day at St. Peter's Square. All eyes were drawn to a figure walking confidently among the crowd. Amidst rows of distinguished guests dressed in formal black attire, one person stood out. Donald Trump, tall, unmistakable, and, as always, different. While most dignitaries adhered to the Vatican's traditional dress code of dark suits, Trump chose a navy blue one. On his chest, a small, sparkling American flag pin caught the soft afternoon sunlight. This wasn't just a fashion choice. It was a statement, a reminder to the world that Trump had never been one to blend in with the crowd. The atmosphere around him shifted as cameras zoomed in and reporters whispered, with headlines quickly emerging. Why did Trump choose this suit? Is this disrespectful, or is he making a political statement? Some criticized his appearance, while others defended him, suggesting it was his way of showing respect for Pope Francis in his own American style. Whether you loved or hated him, one thing was clear. With just a suit and a step into the sacred space of Vatican City, Donald Trump once again became the center of attention. The images of him, standing out in a sea of black mourning attire, flooded social media almost instantly, a visual both solitary and defiant, stirring strong reactions. But was this not the essence of Trump? A man who has always chosen to walk his own path, even in the most solemn settings, standing out and speaking his truth. Trump didn't need to shout at the funeral. His suit spoke louder than words. And as the Vatican, a place steeped in century-old traditions, watched, one thing became undeniably clear. Even in the holiest of places, some choose a different path, and in doing so, they make the world listen. Part 2. The Fateful Encounter. Trump and Zelensky amid the moments of remembrance at Pope Francis' funeral. A brief, but incredibly meaningful meeting took place that left many stunned and raised many questions. Donald Trump, the man who once made Ukraine tread carefully, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine struggling under the weight of an ongoing war, had a private conversation lasting just 15 minutes. In a ceremony filled with solemn rituals and an atmosphere of reverence at the Vatican, no one expected such a moment. No flashing lights, no loud statements, just a quiet conversation. Many would later call it the final miracle of Pope Francis. The unannounced meeting. When news of this meeting emerged, it took many by surprise. Donald Trump, having stepped down from the presidency, seemed to keep a distance from international politics, especially issues concerning Ukraine. He had once played a pivotal role in America's decisions during the Ukrainian conflict, and his relationship with Zelensky had not always been smooth. However, in that moment at the funeral, the two were together in a place where no one anticipated them to meet. Zelensky, as the leader of a country ravaged by war, was undoubtedly under immense pressure. His face carried the weight of countless decisions and the consequences of a war that had torn his nation apart. On the other hand, Trump, with his bold and often controversial political maneuvers, was no stranger to causing tension. Yet, their private conversation that day showed a different side of both leaders. For 15 minutes, there was no grand rhetoric or political agendas. What transpired between them was a quiet exchange, far removed from the headlines and the harsh light of political scrutiny. It wasn't a dialogue of conflict or division, but one of understanding. A historical moment as the two men met. There was no fanfare or public display. Instead, there was a shared sense of seriousness and gravitas. It was as though time stood still for those 15 minutes. The world watched from the outside, unaware of what was being shared between them. but those present could sense the quiet significance of the encounter. The meeting itself was not one that would make headlines on its own. It wasn't about political promises or future alliances. It was more about the shared human experience of two leaders, both grappling with immense pressure, meeting in a moment that was as much about empathy as it was about politics. There were no grand political discussions about the war in Ukraine or Trump's stance on foreign policy. What mattered was the exchange of ideas and a brief but powerful human connection. And in that moment, the personal stories of both leaders merged in a way that transcended their political roles. Changing relations. This meeting was not just significant for Trump and Zelensky, but it also held profound implications for the international relationship between the United States and Ukraine. In the past, their relationship had been complicated, with moments of tension and disagreement. Yet this meeting hinted at something new, a potential shift in how both parties viewed each other, and possibly a new chapter in their diplomatic relations. For Trump, who had often been criticized for his unpredictable foreign policy, this encounter suggested that there was more beneath the surface. While Zelensky had been critical of some of Trump's past actions, there was a recognition that in a world of crises, cooperation and mutual understanding could be a stepping stone toward resolving conflicts. The last miracle of Pope Francis. Many people referred to this encounter as the final miracle of Pope Francis. In the midst of political turmoil and ongoing crisis, this simple, quiet meeting between two leaders at the heart of Vatican City carried profound symbolic meaning. It was not a political move, but a demonstration that, even in the most challenging times, dialogue and understanding could still be fostered. The essence of this moment lay not in the political agreements they might have discussed, but in the fact that two people from opposing sides could sit down and communicate in a way that transcended borders and ideologies. This was a rare reminder that sometimes, it's not the loudest voices or the most extravagant displays that create change. It's the quiet, genuine moments of understanding that have the power to change the course of history. A message of hope. This encounter between Trump and Zelensky was not just a historical moment. It was also a message of hope. In a world where conflicts often feel endless, and where the voices of division seem to be growing louder, this meeting reminded us that understanding and dialogue are still possible. It showed that even in the darkest of times, there can be moments of light, moments when the potential for peace, cooperation, and mutual respect shines through. While there were no public statements from either leader after the meeting, its significance lingered. It wasn't about what was said, but rather about what was felt in that brief interaction. The world witnessed not just two men who had shared a fleeting moment of human connection, but two leaders who, in the midst of chaos, took the time to listen to each other. This meeting was, perhaps, a beacon of hope, a reminder that despite the differences that divide nations, there are still moments where people can come together, understand each other, and work towards a better future. Part 3. The moment that stunned the world. Trump and the phone. Amid the sacred atmosphere of Pope Francis' funeral, a moment captured the attention of the entire world. As people bowed their heads in remembrance, the sound of hymns resonated through the square, blending with moments of silence and reverence. Meanwhile, an image suddenly appeared on the media's lenses. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, holding a mobile phone. A touch, a swipe. That's all it took to spark a wave of controversy. While the world mourned, Trump's action of holding a phone stirred a media storm. That simple moment, which seemed innocent enough, quickly became a topic of heated debate. It wasn't just about a phone. It was about the implications of such an action in the midst of a solemn ceremony. Was it disrespectful, or merely an unintentional act? An unexpected moment. In that very moment, the cameras did not miss a single detail. The image of Trump holding the phone during the ceremony became the hottest topic in the media, from major newspapers to social platforms. Everyone focused on his hands movement, swiping across the screen. A seemingly trivial act, but one with far-reaching consequences. Trump has always been a controversial figure, not only because of his political decisions, but also due to his knack for attracting attention, even in situations where others might choose restraint. Pope Francis' funeral was a solemn occasion, where guests were expected to show respect and composure. Yet, in that instant, Trump's action drew more attention than the ceremony itself. A question of respect and attitude. The big question after the event was whether Trump's action could be considered disrespectful at such a serious occasion. In the context of the ceremony, it seemed inappropriate for anyone to use a mobile phone while the world was mourning. But for his supporters, this was just an unintentional act that didn't deserve the fuss it created. Regardless, there was no denying that the action became a subject of discussion across all platforms. Did Trump fail to recognize the gravity of the situation? Or was this a subtle expression of his unique way of handling social norms, often choosing not to follow them? Or perhaps, it was simply an innocent mistake with no disrespect intended? This incident wasn't just a reflection of Trump's character, but also of the persona he's built over time. Someone who defies social conventions, who isn't afraid to break norms, even in settings where others would conform. Small action, big impact. Although it was a small gesture, the swipe of Trump's phone created massive waves. Media outlets quickly covered it. Social media erupted with countless comments and analysis. The image of Trump holding his phone at the funeral spread rapidly, accompanied by debates about the appropriateness of using a mobile phone in such a setting. Some felt this was an outright disrespect to the ceremony, believing it detracted from the reverence of the moment. Others argued it was a trivial matter, blown out of proportion, and criticized those making a big deal out of it. This disagreement highlighted the divide in perceptions of social norms. What one person may see as a harmless action, another might interpret as a breach of respect. An event in the flow of time. Regardless of the debate, we cannot deny that this moment has become a part of history. In a world full of significant events and moments, small actions like these often reveal deeper truths about the way we communicate and the social codes we adhere to. Could this moment say something about the relationship between Trump and society, or how he views societal expectations? Is it a sign of rebellion against a world that often feels too rigid, a world where he feels constrained? As with many other controversial actions throughout his career, Trump's phone gesture at the funeral highlighted the contrast between him and other leaders. While other politicians might have chosen silence and restraint, Trump chose to act in a way that only he would. His swipe of the phone was more than just a moment of distraction. It was a statement of independence, a rejection of societal norms that many would consider obligatory. A lesson in observation and analysis. Though Trump's action has been widely criticized, it also offers a lesson in observation and analysis. In our modern society, where every action is scrutinized under a harsh lens, we must sometimes learn to view events from multiple perspectives. We need to understand that each moment, each action, can carry different meanings for those involved, and sometimes we must accept that not every action has to conform to the standards set by society. After all, Trump's gesture shows a fundamental truth. In a world filled with rules, expectations, and norms, sometimes the differences and the unexpected actions are what make people stop and think. And once again, Trump proved that he would never shy away from creating controversy, even in moments that others might find serious or mundane. Part 4. The stories behind the encounter. Trump and Zelensky. Context, importance, and impact. When we think of historical moments, an encounter is rarely just a meeting between two individuals. Sometimes, it is the interaction between two symbols of nations, two men with different circumstances and influence, yet with a deep common point, their confrontation with monumental challenges and pivotal decisions. In this case, it was the meeting between Donald Trump, the former President of the United States, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine. Tensions and struggles. From the past to the present, when their meeting took place, both Trump and Zelensky carried with them long stories of struggle, war, and tough decisions they had to make. Trump, during his years in office, made several decisions regarding Ukraine, some of which sparked controversy. On the other hand, Zelensky, as a new leader, is facing immense tension with the ongoing war against Russia. Despite their different viewpoints, their meeting reflected the complex reality of international politics that they were both navigating. A tense meeting when looking at the political situation in Ukraine under Zelensky's leadership. One cannot ignore the hardship the country is facing. The war not only threatens territorial integrity, but also presents a difficult puzzle of diplomacy and global strategy. Trump, in the years before, wasn't exactly a figure that Ukraine would feel comfortable with. In fact, relations between Trump and Ukraine were marked by tensions, from the suspicion of interference in Ukraine's elections to Trump's decisions regarding military aid. So why was this meeting so important? Because it wasn't just a simple conversation between two leaders. It was a moment full of contradictions between a former president with great influence and a Ukrainian president facing a life-and-death struggle. It was a meeting of skepticism and hope, of past and present interwoven. An important dialogue, not just about politics. This meeting wasn't only about military or political matters. It was also a demonstration of the complex relationship between the two countries. Zelensky, a leader without years of political experience, is trying to secure support from larger nations, especially the EU. Meanwhile, Trump, although no longer president, still holds significant influence in global politics and within the Republican Party. However, behind the discussions, we must recognize that the encounter between Trump and Zelensky reflected the strategic power and desire to maintain influence that major nations hold in a global climate of instability. In this meeting, we saw the convergence of a former president and a young, ambitious president trying to protect his country in a tense global context. Impact on Ukraine's future? A turning point? This meeting wasn't just about diplomacy. It could bring significant changes to Ukraine's future. When Trump, though no longer in power, still holds significant sway on international issues, this could make Zelensky think carefully. It is also an important signal to Ukraine about what they can expect from the EU government in the future. A big question remains: will Zelensky receive solid support from the EU in the fight against Russia, or will the EU administration, influenced by Trump and other politicians, continue to maintain its stance on military aid to Ukraine? And this brief encounter could be the turning point in resetting the relationship between the EU and Ukraine in the increasingly tense global situation. The importance of the meeting: more than just politics, this meeting could also be seen as a symbol of changing global politics. Trump, even after leaving the White House, remains an influential figure, and Zelensky seeking him out to discuss his country's future is a sign that Ukraine cannot stand alone in this war. Global politics isn't just about negotiations and agreements. It's about interactions between influential individuals, and the Trump-Zelensky meeting is a symbol of these complex relationships and mutual support. Conclusion: the final images. A new journey begins as the final bells rang. The body of Pope Francis was taken to the Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica, where he had chosen to rest. The funeral, while a moment of remembrance and gratitude for a great religious leader, was also a moment of transition. This was the end of one journey, and the beginning of another, marked by the upcoming conclave, the selection of a new successor, and chapters of history yet to be written. In the silence of the ceremony, the images of the leaders, companions, and followers who had been with him throughout his journey were felt deeply. However, amidst this somber moment, one undeniable truth stands: the Catholic Church continues to live and evolve despite the passing of its head. As the ceremony gradually came to a close and the crowds began to disperse, there lingered an overwhelming question: what legacy does Pope Francis leave behind for the world? The answer may not be simple, but one thing is clear: in the hearts of millions, this separation is not an end. It is a promise to continue lighting the flame of the values he left behind. The conclave and the selection of a successor, like all significant events in the Catholic Church, when a pope passes away, a conclave is held to choose his successor. This event is not only religious but carries profound implications for the future of the Church and the world at large. Cardinals from around the world gather not just to select a leader with the necessary talents and virtues, but to determine the future direction of the Church in an ever-changing world. The process of the conclave is one of the unique features of the Catholic Church, Unlike any political election, it is a decision-making process based on theological and spiritual considerations, where the cardinals must listen to the voice of God and make choices grounded in their deep understanding of the needs of the Church in today's modern world. Each cardinal entering the conclave carries not only his personal thoughts, but also the immense responsibility of representing over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. Every decision made during this election is serious and requires a thorough understanding of the state of the Church, from internal challenges to broader global issues. A new chapter unwritten. Every event, every moment in history, opens up new opportunities. With the passing of Pope Francis, not only is there a void in the leadership of the Church, but also a significant turning point for the faithful across the globe. We cannot yet know who his successor will be, but one thing is certain: whoever inherits his position will carry an enormous responsibility, leading a Catholic Church that faces many social, religious, and political challenges. As the cardinals prepare for the conclave, they must reflect on the core values that Pope Francis has left behind. He brought a powerful message of love, peace, and responsibility for the environment. He made the world listen to issues such as migration, social division, and poverty. These values will continue to guide the decisions of his successor. However, it is not just about preserving these values. Pope Francis' passing also serves as a reminder of the need for continued renewal within the Church. In an era where the world is changing rapidly, the Catholic Church must find ways to engage with new issues, from technology and personal freedoms to the changing ways younger generations approach faith. These questions are not easily answered, but they will undoubtedly shape the new chapters of the Church in the future. Continuing the legacy of Pope Francis as everything slowly settles, and the bustle of the funeral ceremony fades away, the final images of Pope Francis remain etched in the minds of millions. He was not just a pope. He was a person who reshaped the way the world viewed many issues in society, a man who stood up to protect the vulnerable and fought for human values. Undoubtedly, difficult times lie ahead. The Church will face many challenges in maintaining unity and dealing with internal issues. However, one undeniable fact is that the legacy of Pope Francis will continue, and no matter how the world changes, his values will remain a guiding light for millions of believers across the world. And perhaps, that is the most important gift he left humanity: a promise of love, peace, and unity. When this separation happens, it is not the end, but rather the beginning of a new journey. A journey where the values of Pope Francis will continue to live on in the hearts of all, leading us forward with hope and the light of faith. Thank you so much for joining us in today's episode of Kunzy Podcast English. If you've enjoyed this journey through history and reflection, don't forget to show your support. Like this video, share it with friends and family, and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on more captivating stories. Every like, share, and subscription helps us bring you even more content that inspires, educates, and entertains. And of course, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Stay tuned for more fascinating discussions and stories that will make you think and inspire your day. Until next time, keep learning and stay inspired.